Me and I'm seeing it's supposed to get loud.
Test 1, 2, test. 2, 2, 2. It might.
Do I have to have it? Do I have to have it on?
Motion to go back into regular session.
So moved.
Heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Motion to adjourn. Vote the committee of the whole. Motion. Heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Go into regular session with a moment of silence and pledge allegiance. As you can see, we are on our own again tonight because of the lateness.
Move approval of the record, Mr. President.
You heard the motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Counselor.
Thank you. On the record for the special meeting for June 19th, on page 4, the motion to move the previous question isn't noted. It needs to be noted and recorded with those corrections, to approve with those corrections. You follow me, Tim? Page 4 of June 19th.
Yeah, the motion to move the question was in Finance Committee, so we'll add it to the regular meeting.
Thank you very much.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. I'd like to just leave with a statement, open meeting law statement. The meeting is being televised live here on cable channel 9 and being taped by PBD Access TV and also being recorded by City Council stenographer. Folks, if you will indulge with me, I'd like to take a little bit out of order, if there's no objections, and that is just to move some of our personnel home. They had a long day. So if you would allow me to take up 7A. 7A. Mayor? Can I have a motion to receive?
So moved.
Heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Mr. Mayor?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, councilors. I'm here today to introduce my candidate for the Director of Public Works and ask for his approval, Bob Labossiere. We had an extensive process of hiring Mr. Labossiere. I wanted to thank Councilor John Turco, our Human Resources Director, Beth O'Donnell, Tim Healy, our Facilities Director, and Kurt Bellavance, our Community Development Director. We had a little over 20 applicants for the position. It was a very strong group of candidates. We initially interviewed 8 and then narrowed that group down to a handful that I interviewed along with Mike Gingras. Following a number of discussions, many interviews, we believe we found the perfect candidate for the city of Peabody to handle this very difficult, challenging job as the Director of Public Works. Just a little bit of background on Mr. Labossiere. He has his Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from University of Massachusetts and then began his career. For the last 20 years, he has worked in public service for towns of Haverhill, Concord, Hudson, and most recently, he's been the Director of Public Works for the town of Middleton for approximately the last 12 to 13 years. Excellent range of skills, projects that he's worked on. He certainly knows the area very well, very familiar with things that have been happening in Peabody, and I'm very happy to offer his name as our new Director of Public Works. Mr. Labossiere is here, and if there's no objection, he can perhaps come up and introduce himself.
Please do.
Good evening. Bob Labossiere. I'd just like to take a minute to thank the mayor and the committee members and the council for this opportunity to work for the city of Peabody. I've heard a lot of great things about the city. I'm excited to start. I've heard from a few of you tonight when I've met you that there's a lot of work ahead of us, and I look forward to getting down and starting that work. So I appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Any councilors who would like to say anything? Councilor Manny Martin.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Labossiere, I see that you currently are the Director of Public Works at Middleton. And what's the population there? 9,600 residents? You were the Assistant Director of Public Works prior to that of Hudson, which is about 19,000 residents? Right, and so, and I guess my concern is the size of
Mr. Labossiere, can you turn your mic on, please?
My concern is such a difference in size of not only the department, the budget, and the number of staff, but the size of city, its infrastructure.
Sure.
And your experience with much smaller towns, much smaller budgets, and much smaller staff. So I am concerned about the you know, being able to handle that with that amount of experience
Sure.
coming from much smaller towns.
I can tell you, when I was in the town of Hudson, we had 35 employees. We had a sewer treatment plant on our property at the Public Works. We had a water surface treatment plant there. We had 2 gravel-packed treatment facilities for our water. We had an extensive amount of sewer main that we replaced ourselves with our workforce. Did a lot of work on that, a lot with I&I. Our water mains, we had very old water mains that we did extensive replacements for them. I can tell you that I'm very experienced in the water and sewer aspects of it. And when it came to budgets, our budgets were probably pretty equal to what it was in Hudson with the amount of treatment plants that we had there. So I am not worried about the size of the city. I'm very confident I can do a very good job for the city.
I appreciate your confidence, and you know, we had elevated the salary of this position in order to cast a wide net and bring people with a lot of experience with that would benefit a city of this size, and we matched the salary to do that. So I'm sure you will move forward this evening, but for those reasons, I won't be supporting your nomination.
understand.
But thank you, and I wish you the best of luck, of
Thank you very
course,
much.
for the city.
Councilor Melville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, have you been familiarized with some of you talked about water, but the water issue we had recently?
Yep.
Have you encountered any of that? I'm just assuming that you're familiar with. Did you encounter that in any of your other positions? You had mentioned you had a number of plants.
Correct.
Some experience with that.
We did some rehabilitation of our treatment plant when I was in Hudson. As I've been in Middleton, I was involved in some aspects of the renovation of the water treatment plant in Middleton. It is run by the town of Danvers, but it's a consecutive water system, so we were involved quite extensively with that renovation of the treatment plant there as well.
Entertain the motion.
Move, Mr. President. Motion to approve the mayor's appointment. I'll get actually down to the nitty-gritty here. Name Robert Labossiere, Director of Public Services, for a term to expire on 12/31/2020. So move, Mr. President.
You heard the motion. Roll call, please.
Councilors O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes.
Mitsoulas,
Yes.
Martin,
No.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-1.
Welcome.
Thank you for your courtey, Council.
You're welcome. As I said, we're just going to take a little bit out of order, if no objections, to go to 9D, block party requests. The clerk, please read the notice. No notice. Hang on, folks, I won't see anything here. The applicant. Yeah. Is the applicant here? Is the applicant here? For, what road is it to me?
I would defer to Council.
Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Due to Captain Richard's schedule, we wanted to talk about Birch and Scott and Terry, the block party scheduled for July 21st. And move to accept under suspension of the rules 9D, please. So moved.
So move. Councilor Richards. Captain.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for taking me out of order. I was asked to look into a application for a block party up on Scott Drive, and there was certain aspects of the application that I found that needed to be addressed. They've had this party every year for several years, and although we don't have a lot of complaints at the police department, it's my understanding that a lot of complaints about the block party have come through other sources. And even though they haven't come through the police department, we take those very serious, so we want to make sure that every block party that takes place is safe for everybody, not just the party goers, but the neighbors too. While I was looking into it, one thing I did notice is that they have, and I'll give them credit, they have called and asked for and hired a detail each year for 4 hours for the block party. The problem is they have not paid for that detail since 2011. They've only paid for one of them. So they're in arrears by $700 and something for those details. Certainly, we want to make sure that those details get paid for before they get the application approved for this year. The other thing I noticed on the applications is the events go till 11 o'clock on the permit, but the detail is only hired until 10 o'clock, which to me makes no sense when a detail is leaving at 10 o'clock and the event is going on until 11 o'clock or further. So I would recommend that if this gets approved, that the hours for the detail be changed. If their application is approved till 11 o'clock, the detail be changed from 8 at night to midnight to make sure that the detail officer is there when the event is closed so that he can make sure or she can make sure that that road is opened and everybody's off the street and all is quiet before the detail officer leaves. And the last request I would make is, since they are in arrears on all this money, that if they do call and ask for detail, which I hope is part of this permit process, that they pay for this detail up front so we don't have to address this issue again down the road. So those are my concerns that I came up with this situation.
Councilor O'Neill?
Thank you. I guess I would like to make a motion, if I could, just to, put the request in and prove it. So under suspension of the rules, move to approve the block party with the following conditions: that the applicants pay all overdue funds to the City of Peabody before the block party. Number two, make sure that there is a police detail at this event, especially from 8 p.m. until midnight, 1 hour after it. And lastly, make sure that they require that the payment of the police detail for this year in 2018 be paid for prior to the party. So moved.
Counselor, do you want to put a date on when the payment should be made? You say just prior. Does that mean the day before? Or?
The party is scheduled for June 30th. So, excuse me, wrong one. Sorry. Excuse me, sorry, wrong paper. Saturday, July 21st. So they should pay it by that Friday, which is July. So make a condition that they pay that, all monies by Friday, July 20th.
That would be fine. I do have one other issue. They schedule the music, they typically have a live band, and oftentimes a live band is scheduled to end at the same time the event ends, but it's been fluctuating between ending at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. I would request that if they have live entertainment or a DJ, that they end at 10 o'clock, not 11 o'clock, to give them time to break their equipment down and move out of there. So that would be another condition that I would like to put on that.
Agreed. The band is supposed to be playing until 10 o'clock. The block party is supposed to run until 11 o'clock.
Counselor, is the petitioner here? Do you know? Do you see any of them?
I don't know any of them personally.
Your motion?
Yes.
On the motion, any counselors? I'm going to ask for a roll call on this one because of the back fees. Counselor?
Councilors O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Sasla.
Yes.
Mitsoulas.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Motion carries 11 to nothing.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain. And again, if you can indulge, to go to 4 hearings D. Clerk, please read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as a special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, June 28, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. in the Franco Wiggin Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., on the application from the City of Peabody, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., for a special permit seeking to erect an electronic message board sign at 485 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., as filed in accordance with sections 11.4.8, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. Peabody City Council, Councilor Edward R. Charist, City Council President.
Just state your name.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, good evening, Council. We're here today to present a request to erect a new digital sign at the entrance to Peabody High School. This is something that we had budgeted, was a part of our capital request last year. The funds for this and some of the other signs that we're looking to add, Centennial Park additionally. So the money is part of the capital request that was previously done last year. The cost of the sign is $32,000. It will be a digital sign that we'll be able to utilize in many different ways to promote activities, promote events, honor our veterans in many other ways. I believe you have the visual of the sign in the packet. You certainly are aware of what we have now. It's a sign that's aged, and we're looking to erect a new sign and put some new landscaping in that area, in the entranceway, and that will be done prior to the start of the school year in September.
Questions, Counselor? Anyone here in favor? Anyone in the audience oppose? Councilor Rosenau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is well overdue, to be perfectly honest with you. The only question I really have is where the sign will be located. I know you had in our packet is a picture of where the old sign is, where it's pretty far and set back. I'm assuming the electronic sign will be closer to the roadway where it's two-sided, and I'm assuming that it'll be at an angle so you'll be able to see it from both directions on Lowell Street.
It is going to be, we intend to move it up. It is not a two-sided sign. That came at a significantly higher cost. It's one sign. It will be angled as it is now. The reason that we didn't want to do two sides is, one, because of cost, but secondly, the entranceway to the temple, there's a number of trees there. It would have lost the value of having it that way, having it both sides. So we believe that by angling it as it is now, that it will be very effective.
The reason for my question regarding double-sided is on the rendering, it just says double-sided illuminated pylon sign. So that was my confusion. But thank you.
Councilor Sasslaw.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that I echo the comments of Councilor Rosenau. I'm excited when I saw this in my packet. I think it's great. More communication, events that are going on in the city, both scholastically and things such as the International Festival and stuff like that. So I saw it. I think it makes sense. It brings us forward into the next century here, so I'll fully support it and see it's going up.
Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, I also echo the sentiments of my fellow councilors. It's going to be a wonderful addition down there. Mr. Mayor, we have one opportunity to make that corner look good. Let's do it. Thank you.
If not, I would just like to say that certainly in favor of this, especially in my particular ward. I remember when my children were going to the high school, and the PTOs at that time, you're talking about 10 years back, had talked about having a sign just for this purpose. And with all the other communities around and the sports teams that attend fields at the high school, it was always like they couldn't find it. So I'm glad moving forward. It's a long time overdue, and I certainly support it and appreciate it. Thank you. Councilor McGinn.
Move to close the public hearing.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve the application from City of Peabody, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. for a special permit seeking to erect an electronic message board signed at 485 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. as filed in accordance with sections 11.4.8, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. So moved.
So move. Roll call.
Councilors O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Sasslaw.
Yes.
Matsoulis.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Motion carries 11 to nothing.
Thank you, Council.
All right, councilors, we're back in order now. Go to 4A, special permit. Would the clerk please read the notice?
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as a special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, June 28, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. in the Franco Wiggin Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. on the application from A. Chara Development, LLC, 30B Railroad Street, Revere, Mass. for a special permit seeking to operate a medical marijuana facility to be operated by Wellness Connection of Mass, Inc. at 0 Newberry Street, Assessors Map 88, Parcel 07, Peabody, Mass. as filed in accordance with Sections 6.1, 6.13, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. Peabody City Council, Councilor Edward R. Charist, City Council President.
Would the petitioner please state your name and address and what you'd like to do?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the City of Peabody City Council. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney. I have offices at 40 Lowell Street in Peabody, Massachusetts, and I appear this evening on behalf of not only A. Chara Development, who is the entity that is a for-profit entity which will has entered into an agreement to purchase certain parcel of land known and numbered as 0 Newbury Street. But I also appear this evening on behalf of Wellness Connection of Massachusetts, Inc. Wellness Connection will be the nonprofit entity that will operate the RMD, the medical marijuana dispensary. And HR Development will be the entity which will build the facility and be the taxpayer that will be paying taxes to the city of Peabody, not as a nonprofit. This evening, we have representatives of Wellness Connection of Massachusetts. We are seeking a permit to operate a medical marijuana distribution facility. And with me this evening are Kay Donovan, who is president of Wellness Connection of Massachusetts, Terry Fracassa, who of both of these parties I think you've met before. Terry is here to testify if you have questions on regulatory or legal compliance, and Jacques Santucci, who represents Wellness Connection of Maine, and he's a co-founder of Wellness Connection of Maine and an affiliate of Massachusetts. You heard from Mr. Santucci earlier this evening when he explained issues surrounding the audit and banking. And he's here, however, if you would like to make any inquiry. We did make presentations with these people present when we were here for our non-opposition letters. That group all testified that evening. So tonight, I believe that what we'd like to do is we'd like to present Rick Salvo, civil engineer. He's prepared a site plan. And then we will go to other members of the team following Rick's presentation of how the site itself works.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, members of the council. For the record, my name is Rick Salvo with Engineering Alliance, office at 194 Central Street in Saugus, Mass. I think everyone is fairly familiar with the site. Just to orientate yourself on the graphic, Route 1 northbound is located at the top of the page. 128 off-ramp comes along the side of the page over here. Bertucci's is located in this area here, followed by gas station, Brothers Cusana, and Dom's Power Equipment. This particular piece of land is comprised of about 2 acres. It's located back in the rear of the property, about 275 feet off of Route 1, fronts on a private way, has about 71 feet of frontage on that private way, where 40 feet is required. The proposed building footprint is approximately 4,977 square feet. This will be a brand new building, as the site obviously is currently a vacant site. Access to the site is provided via this 60-foot wide private way that has a right-in, right-out curb cut. We've had preliminary meetings with MassDOT just to confirm that curb cut, and that curb cut would be sufficient for this particular use. Access to the site would come in off of Route 1, down the 275-foot long driveway, access into the site, parking area here, main entrance at this corner. There's also supplemental parking along the northerly side, as well as over here, with a separate delivery area located directly adjacent to the building right here. The parking requirements for this site requires 1 space for every 200 square feet of gross floor area, which yields total required parking of 200 spaces. We meet all the dimensional criteria. As you can see, this is quite a large parcel of land. We're keeping almost 80% of the land as open space. We're occupying 5.4% of the land with this proposed building. There is a small wetland resource area that's located off-site on-site, excuse me, in this low area here, but this building is located completely outside of that buffer zone, so that wetland resource area and the 100-foot buffer zone all remain in a completely natural, untouched state. The long driveway heading into the site provides for easy access into the site, no opportunity for any kind of vehicle queuing or anything like that to back up onto Route 1, and it also allows to create a very secured access given the proposed use. I think that probably makes for a pretty good segue here. We did commission a traffic study. That traffic study was performed by Woodland Design Group, and I think at this point I'll turn over to Rob Woodland to present his traffic findings.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Rob Woodland, President of Woodland Design Group. As Rick had mentioned, we've been asked to conduct a traffic impact assessment and assessment of parking needs for the facility. These facilities are relatively new to Massachusetts as they are to New England. So we did a detailed investigation of the existing facility in Portland, Maine, to get a better sense of what the traffic characteristics are of this type of use, as well as the parking demands. So the operators of the proposed facility have successfully operated a very similar facility in Portland, Maine since April of 2012. The existing facility is roughly 12,000 square feet and will be operated identically as the proposed facility, with hours of operation from 10 a.m. to 7 a.m. Monday through Saturday. So we felt that this was a suitable model to understand the traffic and parking characteristics of the proposed facility. Based on the existing facility, same size, same hours of operation, same intended use as the proposed facility, again, because the hours of operation are from 10 to 7 Monday through Friday, we don't anticipate any vehicle trips being generated during the typical commuter peak period in the morning from 7 to 9, with the first traffic arriving just after that time, employees getting ready to set up for the 10 o'clock open. In the middle of the day, based on over a month's worth of data of the existing facility, we would expect roughly 31 customers to visit the site each hour between 11 to 12 and 12 to 1. During the weekday evening peak hour, we would expect roughly 33 patient visits to the facility during the commuter peak hour, and on Saturday, roughly 35, based on over a month's worth of data provided by the operators of the Portland facility, who will be operating this proposed facility in Peabody. That level of traffic constitutes approximately one car entering and one car exiting the facility roughly every 2 minutes, would not have an undue burden on the surrounding area roadways. In fact, the right-in, right-out access for the proposed facility should minimize any potential traffic impact associated with that level of traffic entering the site. We also...
Can I just interrupt? Yeah. Can I have a motion to accept?
So moved. 8H.
8H? So moved. Thank you.
Thanks. We also took a look at the parking demands for the facility. Again, this was based on existing turnover at the existing facility in Portland, Maine, that will be operated by the same folks who will be operating this facility. Based on a review of the transaction data, and we did have an entire month's worth of data broken out for each hour, the turnover rate for the patients is roughly 8 to 12 minutes. In the busiest hour. So again, looking at the entire transaction data we were able to take a look at, the worst single hour in the entire month of August worked out to be a total visitation of 48 patients. So we use that to form the basis as to be what the peak load of parking demand might be for the facility, and again, that was the single busiest hour in the entire month. So they had a roughly 48 customers during that period. So that would account, again, with each space being able to accommodate with a turnover rate of each space turning over every 12 minutes. We would expect the peak parking demand for the busiest hour observed in the entire month of 10 parking spaces. In addition to the patient parking demand, we would also expect that the employees would also occupy spaces. They could have up to 10 employees throughout the day, with management checking in from time to time, but a peak load of employees of a maximum of 6 employees at any 1 hour of the day, at the busiest time of the day. So the total parking demand for the proposed facility, we estimate at roughly 16 parking spaces. That's taking a look at the busiest hour of the facility for the entire month. The proposed parking supply of 25 spaces should provide an adequate cushion to accommodate that worst-case parking demand. So we feel that both the traffic impacts, roughly 1 car entering, 1 car exiting, via a right turn in, right turn out driveway on Route 1, won't have a noticeable impact on the surrounding area roadways, and that the parking demands, worst-case parking demands of the facility can be easily accommodated by the proposed parking supply. As Rick mentioned, the long driveway entrance will allow no potential backups out onto Route 1, and there's already a wide and generous shoulder on Route 1 that acts as an accel-decel lane for vehicles to pull off and slowly enter into the driveway. So with the radiuses and the length of driveway, I think the site is ideally suited to accommodate this level of traffic. And with that, I think that's the end of the traffic presentation, but I'll be here to answer any of your questions.
Any councilors, any questions with the traffic study? Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a general question. I know that your study or analysis could be hampered of the traffic coming in and out of the site.
And as with any business along Route 1, the very generous shoulder that's provided directly in front of the site allows vehicles to separate themselves from the through traffic and decelerate to make the turn into the site. So I've been out to the site and been looking at the weekday evening commuter peak hour operations. It can be a it can be a bottled mess on Route 1, which slows down the traffic during that peak period. But that deceleration lane allowing the right turn movements into the site should allow a safe separation of those vehicles as they slow down, even during off-peak periods when Route 1 is not congested. So I think that gives me a comfort level that an entering vehicle approximately once every 2 minutes during the busiest period shouldn't result in any kind of undue burden on either impacts to the through traffic or safety for the folks that are turning into the site. For vehicles exiting the site, again, they benefit from the same benefit of the shoulder lane, which allows them to partially get up to speed before they re-enter the traffic flow on Route 1, and that's best used during off-peaks when Route 1 is not congested, where they actually have to get up to speed because Route 1 is not congested in that area. So I think we had taken a look at that, the site distance, the radiuses pulling into the site, and the generous shoulder. I think this is, again, roughly 35 customers coming in the peak periods. I think that flow rate is very small and should not have any noticeable impact on the through operations on Route 1. And in terms of folks exiting the facility, again, that flow rate once every 2 minutes, we would expect a gap would be available on Route 1 to accept that rate of flow during all hours of the day.
Thank you. I guess and I'm certainly not a traffic expert, but, you know, there's very little time when Route 1 is not congested, which is, herein lies the problem. And as you know, there's a convenience store that would be exiting that proposed site, but what's the backup plan if there is a traffic issue, a backup? Like, what's Plan B to make sure that people can get into the site and exit it safely so they're not queuing up on Route 1? Thank you.
So there'd be nothing to prevent a vehicle from entering into the site. That right turn movement into the site would be not hampered by any congestion. So if Route 1 was backed up at a stop-and-go level of traffic, they'd have to wait their turn to get to that access point, separate. I think that would operate. You'll have to wait for your gap in traffic and allow the shoulder to allow you to partially get up to speed to merge into traffic. But this is not an uncommon condition along Route 1, and the flow rate from this development is, again, roughly once every 2 minutes. So the flow rate entering and exiting the site is relatively modest. So I think compared to other facilities on Route 1, this should be a very reasonable operation, given the modest flow that's going to be generated by this particular use.
I don't have any further questions, thank you.
Councilor Manny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to follow up. I share Councilor O'Neill's concerns. He asked a very good question and pointed out that this is a major highway. So when you did your traffic study, were you mentioning Portland as the marijuana facility that you used for statistics and data?
That's correct.
So where is this one facility? Is it on a major highway? Is it in a cow patch? Where is it in Portland?
It's on 685 Concord Street in Portland. It's not on a major highway. What we were using that facility for was to gauge how many customers we might expect based on a month's worth of transactions.
Right.
So that helps us figure out what these facilities generate. The two sites' contexts are different, but the flow rate and characteristics we would expect would be about the same.
Yeah, I just think comparison, it doesn't work in Maine. But we did zone this area. It is what it is. I was never keen on this particular spot for the purpose of it, for the reason that it is on a major highway. But we did zone for it, so it is what it is, so we need to move forward. But I do think that your numbers for the amount of business that is going to go for this zoned 4-parcel area is an underestimate. That's what I believe. But thank you, and those are good questions by Councilor O'Neill, so I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and I would just, not to refute your opinion on this at all, but the idea behind that draw area is really we're looking at a population served by this facility. We understand that there'll be other facilities popping up throughout Massachusetts, so we're going to have a catchment of geographical area where this site would be desirable. To the extent that some folks will be passing by, and we didn't take credit for like pass-by trips, there's certainly a possibility, but what is the limiting factor of what this will generate is that it will have competition in other towns and a catchment of population where this is a convenient use. So comparing the catchment area for the Portland, Maine facility, which also is on a busy road, it's not US Route 1, but the catchment of the population is really what we'd be thinking is the catchment area for this facility, keeping in mind that there will be competition for other sites throughout Massachusetts.
And thank you for your follow-up response. And you do use the word convenience, and to me it is, you know, we go to a convenience store because it's convenient for us, and we make multiple trips because it's on the way to or fro our everyday travels, and that's kind of how I see this spot being particularly busy. So you and I disagree, I think, on the amount of business it's going to do, but I'll move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the petitioner. This traffic study was dated November 8th, 2017, and we had a communication from the police department dated June 6th, 2018, requesting a traffic study. Did the traffic study not get to the police department? Do you know?
Yes. At the time of the initial filing, which was last August, no, it did not reach the police department. But when I did see the comment that you're referring to now, I was able to get it up to the police department. And Captain Richards thanks us for the submission. So they have it now.
They have it, and to the best of your knowledge, there's no additional feedback available.
I don't know that the department has reviewed it yet.
Thank you. I know Captain Richards was here earlier on an unrelated matter. Has he left? He's gone. Okay. Thank you.
So the chief is here if you...
Maybe if the chief could comment on whether or not the traffic study's been...
Good evening, thank you. We received the traffic study, and the captain has looked at it and hasn't brought any issues to my attention that we needed to bring forward to the council.
Thank you, Captain.
Chief.
Sorry, I gave you a demotion there. I apologize for that. No
Thank you.
disrespect
No problem.
intended.
Any other councilors?
The one thing I thought I might add was that when we looked at Portland, the demographic is quite similar to Peabody in terms of total population. We're at approximately 53,000, I believe now, and Portland is 60,000. So I think that what Mr. Woodland was speaking to, the catchment area, it is somewhat similar. So if any further questions for our traffic, or is there anybody wanting to go back to the Matthew McGeorge, who is our architect, who we've engaged and has prepared plans depicting the layout and how the building will physically work on the inside. Matt?
Hello, thank you. My name is Matthew McGeorge. I'm the architect of record, engaged to work on this project, and I believe you should have these exhibits in your package. If not, I apologize. I've been working in this space since 2011, starting in Rhode Island when the applications were going out for the first cultivation and dispensary facilities in that state. Since then, I've designed and constructed 3 open and operating dispensary facilities, one of which is in Rhode Island, 2 of which are in Massachusetts. Most recently, the Commonwealth Alternative Care Facility in Taunton and the Hope Heal Health Facility in Fall River, which is nearing completion. In addition to the facilities that have been designed, reviewed, and approved by the Mass DPH, we've designed additional facilities in Fitchburg, Revere, Peabody, Worcester, and completed several other studies. So the opportunity to design this facility was fantastic, considering it's a new structure. In some of the projects in the past, we've had to contend with existing buildings, and it's a little bit more of a challenge for flow and security. So in this case, there's basically it's sort of 2 buildings, if you will. There's the secure staff delivery and product entrance, which would occur at the back of the facility, and then the patient entrance and secure man trap. That's one of the requirements, and check-in location. So then patients would check in, and I believe, not to repeat Jacques too much, but he described the security protocols and identification, and we have a security consultant as well that will speak to that. They then enter the space, and there's an opportunity to go directly to a sales counter if the patients know exactly what they want. We also have created consulting pods for people that are new card holders or are looking for additional educational information. So there's consulting spaces off the sales floor. The vault, which is a very secure space that is immediately adjacent to the sales care, and the spectrum of patients that we've found in our other operating facilities is quite amazing. I think it would surprise a lot of people that aren't familiar with them, just how broad a range of patients do attend these facilities. So the intent is to provide a nice, warm, welcoming, and inviting to facilitate wellness, essentially. That's about it. It's pretty basic. Security devices, so there's exterior perimeter cameras around the entire building, interior cameras. The security hardware is quite extended through a central data processing. Again, I could get into more of the details, but you know, we've designed a lot of these, so I've started to take for granted what we're used to doing. And just lastly, this is just an initial first concept of a three-dimensional rendering of what the building could be like. And again, I think the just under 5,000 square feet really is a sweet spot for the program of these facilities. It allows enough space for a comfortable sales floor and all the support spaces that are required to properly operate and manage it, including meeting spaces for outside vendors, auditors, whomever needs to come into the facility, staff lockers and break rooms, vaults, mechanical spaces, the whole 9 yards. So based on the patient information that was presented also by the traffic engineer in terms of the number of visitors, this square footage is perfect. So that's all I have, and I'll turn it over to Rick.
Before we go too far, do we have any questions? Thank you. Do we have any questions from the council? Any questions? Okay.
Our next presenter is Guy Glotis. He'll get up and speak to you about security. He is our security consultant, and he'll go through how this operation works, how we secure the premises. We do have some representation with the council. They're not necessarily something that we want to put on the TV so that people would all know where our cameras are located, but Guy will walk you through those issues.
Thank you, Jack. Mr. President, members of the council, for the record, my name is Guy Glotis. I am the Security Director for Wellness Connection of Massachusetts. I'd like to begin by saying that we are committed to having a facility that everyone, from the police department to the fire department to the political structure, meaning City Hall, can be very, very proud of. We have, as our paramount concern, the safety and the security of not only our customers, but the neighbors and the public. And I believe we have a long track record that can establish that goal. Mr. President, through you to members of the council, by just way of background, I am a former Academy trained court officer, correctional officer. I was elected to the House of Representatives and the State Senate in the 1990s, where I had an opportunity after the tragic events of 9/11 to be promoted to chairman of public safety in the Massachusetts State Senate, where I worked closely with federal, state, and local law enforcement on homeland security and terrorism. In 2004, I was elected sheriff of Worcester County in charge of the care, control, and custody of 1,440 inmates, 625 employees, and roughly a $41 million a year budget. In 2010, I became a legislative I represent the State Police Commissioned Officers, which is the command staff, basically lieutenant, captain, majors of the state police. Confident that the security at the Wellness Connection in Peabody will surpass probably some of the security of the Department of Corrections throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Our vendor for putting the security in, we're contracted with Lantel Communications. They are located in Norwood, Massachusetts, Mr. President. They're locally owned, locally operated. They're the exclusive security vendor for the state police, the Boston PD, the MBTA, Massport, the United States Coast Guard. They've and participated in other security dispensaries throughout the Commonwealth. They're on the state FAC 64 and the state bid list. A very good company, Mr. President. With that said, we will be in full compliance with CMR 725, and in my opinion, even exceed some of those requirements. There will be biometric fingerprinting for reading and locking doors on the outside perimeter. And I just want to mention again what Rick said. You know, one of the differences in sites is that we have a very long driveway. And that not only helps with traffic mitigation, Mr. President, but it also helps with security, knowing who's coming, who's going. There will be closed-circuit video monitoring on the outside of the building, which will encompass the entire perimeter. We will have both marked and unmarked vehicles and both uniformed and ununiformed security personnel, both outside the building and inside the building. When you approach to go inside the building, there will be a one-point entrance and exit which will control the inflow of people. There will not be chaos. To be able to get in, you would have to actually have access code, and there'll be a trap door. Furthermore, people coming in to the facility will need an identification card, and again, they will be on videotape at all time. When we talk about videos, there'll be videos inside of the facility, and an option I think that every counselor in this chamber would like to hear and know is that we have and will work with full transparency with the Peabody Police Department. If they want to know what's going on inside that dispensary, or if they want to know what's going on outside of that dispensary, there will be a live video right at the Peabody Police Department, should they ever want or need that option. And we would certainly encourage them to have that option. Furthermore, there'll be access scramble codes, control codes. There'll be a infrared microwave motion detection system. There'll be a glass break detection system. There'll be panic alarms. We have backup generators. We are very familiar with security, and again, as I said, we take it very serious. Another point of issue I want to say is that we give preference to local police officers that are retiring. We feel as if they know your community better than we do coming in for the first time. So when we do look at our hiring, not only do we do a query check on everyone to make sure that there are no convicted felons or anyone that has anything to do with illegal retirees to fill those security jobs. So, Mr. President, we feel very confident that we will run a top security system. And lastly, let me just say that we understand with security, it also goes to a degree public relations. We want to make sure that members of this council, members of the community, and the Peabody Police Department have updates and meetings. We would like to have periodic meetings, whether they're once a month or several times a year, to be able to welcome those officials into our facility to know exactly what's going on and to be able to backlog all of those activities. Our other facilities in Rhode Island and Maine have not had any significant incidents, and we don't anticipate any here, but we always want to be prepared, and we take that very seriously. So with that said, Mr. President, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. I would also like to add that part of state law is that the applicants in the community can only visit the police chief, which we did to show our security plan, but we also, one of the laws is that you meet with the sheriff of each particular county where you'd like to open a facility. And we did also meet with Sheriff Coppinger and go over our plans with him as well. So we feel as if to date, knock on wood, we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's, and we look forward to an opportunity to serve the people, the good people of the city of Peabody. Thank you.
Is there any councilors who have any questions? Any councilors? Thank you.
Two more things to add, which is I have a collection of some 11 letters from community members. I would pass.
Can I have a motion?
These are letters of support from.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
So that would be for the clerks, and then I think we can. I think I have exactly 11, if I'm not mistaken. The other, sort of lastly, I'd like to emphasize the level of experience that this team has with respect to operating these facilities. They've done it in the past. They operate elsewhere out of state, and I'd like to bring Jacques Santucci up to the microphone to speak to that issue.
Hello again, my name is Jacques Santucci, representing Wellness Connection of Massachusetts. I'm one of the founder of Wellness Connection of Maine. I'm here to answer any question you may have. I'd like to add something actually on security that Guy didn't mention, but one of the riskier time of the day is actually probably at night when nobody is really in the facility. So beside all the security features that Guy mentioned, I'd like to mention that there is actually almost no medicine, no product that are left unattended in the facility. They all go in a safe, or a safe room, I should say. So at night, not only there's a lot of security around, but the products are also secure in their own room. That said, I've been involved in the medical marijuana industry for now 8 years. It feels like it's not a long time, but in this industry, it feels like it's been forever. I've been working in 4 dispensaries in Maine, and 1 in Hawaii, 1 in Rhode Island, and helped and advised other companies around the country. So if you got any question, I'm here to answer.
Councilors, any questions? Any questions, councilors? Seeing none?
Thank you.
With that, the entire team would make themselves available for any questions that the council may have. We believe that we've filed a special permit application that completely complies with the requirements of the City Council rules and regulations with respect to obtaining special permits. We believe that we have a wonderfully experienced group. We have a very safe location. I remember that early in discussions, there was a concern with the area that the city zone should be away from residences. We have complied with that. We have placed this particular parcel of land under agreement because it's not terribly visible from the streets. We have not chosen to, we actually could, if the need arises, as Councilor Manning Martin, if we're as busy as you think we may be, we have the opportunity, if we were to go to the Conservation Commission, to increase the number of spaces. So we would be happy to do that should the need arise, although we comply with the zoning requirement with respect to spaces. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Again, any questions from the committee? Council.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the...
Councilman, again, if you will, looking for anyone to speak in favor and then oppose before we go to the council.
Right. This is not a motion, but I'm happy to follow. Yes.
At this time, is anyone in favor, would like to speak in favor in the audience? Anyone in favor of this application? Anyone in oppose of this application in the audience who would like to speak? Please come and state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
For the record, my name's Russell Donovan, 12 Quail Road. I hate it when you ask in favor or in opposition. I have concerns. I know. So my concerns are this. As Mr. Kelty said, they have limited visibility. They're in the back lot. So my question to the petitioner and to the city council is signage, number one. How are people going to know they're there if they don't put a sign up? Are they going to ask for a waiver in the zoning to put a big billboard on the property? Because they're set back and it's a small driveway, I think he said 71 feet, are they going to put a sign out there that might impact the traffic? Are they going to ask for any variances in the zoning of operation? Are they going to be opened up until midnight? The public hasn't heard any of the orders of condition of operation. Signage, are they going to go to the Board of Appeals for signage? Are they going to have a sign on Route 1? If so, where is it? Where do they plan to put it? There are a lot of questions to be answered that the City Council hasn't got answers to or the public hasn't heard about. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, according, there is no signage, sir. Part of the medical dispensaries in the Commonwealth, I believe, prohibits signage, so we wouldn't be using signage. And again, we look at it as a distinct advantage having the longer driveway for traffic control and for security. So we don't think it's a distraction at all. We actually think it's an advantage both geographically and for security reasons. I'll let Jack follow up.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Keith Doucette. I live at 18 Surrey Lane, Peabody. So again, I'm more concerned. I'm not against them. I'm concerned with the location of it. I would love to see it here in Peabody. I think we're going to kill ourselves if we put it on Route 1. You know, I understand they did the traffic study. Looking at the Portland numbers, the Portland area has, from what I can see, at least 3, if not 5, dispensaries in the area. And so at 66,000 population, they're serving about 13,000 per dispensary. We're looking at maybe having 2, and so at 52,000, where we're at. We're at 26,000 people that they're trying to serve. I just think the numbers are a little bit low, and the area there on Route 1, as we all know, at 5 o'clock, you're there until 7 anyway, just trying to get past that Linfield Tunnel. So for the people that aren't from around here, I don't want to see it back up. So I think the numbers are low, and I think it's a very bad location because there is absolutely no possible secondary plan if the numbers do not line up on Route 1. There's no way out of that location. You're not going to get the cutout onto an on-ramp to the highway. There's absolutely no other way out except back onto Route 1. And, you got to be going about 35, 40 miles an hour in about half a second when you're pulling out on Route 1 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's my concern. Again, I would love to see it here in Peabody, but just not in that zoned location. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Seeing none, Councilman McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the petitioner, Attorney Kelly. The hours of operation that were cited in the traffic study were 10 to 7, but the hours of operation in the special permit application were 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 9 a.m. through 8 p.m. on Saturday. Which which are the actual hours? What's in the traffic study or what's in the application?
Study reflected the hours that were in Portland, and those certainly are hours that we could live with. I don't think there's any need for that first hour. Is there 9 o'clock? The question on my application for special permit, I reflected different hours than we used in the main operation. Yeah. You would live with the hours that the traffic study reflects. The traffic study reflected 10.
Yeah, to 7.
10 to 7.
And I didn't hear the other hours.
Yeah, so the traffic study indicated 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. The application says 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 9 a.m. through 8 p.m. on Saturday. Both of them indicate closed on Sunday. So the question is which are the correct hours, because I know that part of what I heard from the traffic expert is that you're relying on a lesser amount of traffic because the rush hour will have eased out.
Yeah, what we found out is there's not that much traffic, there's not that much clientele or patient. I think 10. You know,
cut the 8 o'clock on Saturday, right?
Yeah, so your question is really about the 7 to 8 on Saturday.
What you're asking for? Are you asking for 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and no hours on Sunday, or are you asking for the hours that are reflected in the application? And my colleague just pointed out to me that, because it's on the next line here, we also have Sunday hours on here, noon to 5 p.m. on Sunday, which is...
Yeah, so because of the different profile, I think the hours that have been requested are probably correct. At the beginning, it's probably not going to be that kind of hours. I think that's more the hours down the line. In Portland, Maine, and most of the New England dispensaries that I know, they actually start closer to 10 in the morning and closer to 7. That's more the traditional hours. I think those hours have been extended just so it's facilities have been open.
And whether ventilation systems will be adequate to prevent off-site migration of odors. Is that, Matt? Is that a question?
There's no on-site use.
Pardon?
There's no on-site use.
Okay, well, just... So the inquiry is whether or not there's on-site consumption? No.
No, there's no on-site use. No, not even on the premises. At the beginning of the patient registering, there's a good neighbor contract, and that's it. So.
And is this good neighbor, is this a policy of Wellness Connection?
Correct.
This is not a legislated requirement? This is
well, the legislation stipulates that there's no on-site, but it's we're going the step beyond that by saying, you know, not on a parking lot, and then try to educate the patient about what they can do and cannot do, and what they should do and should not do.
So that requirement exists legislatively,
Correct.
and you are taking it a step further
Correct.
by establishing a company policy to
Yes.
to enter into this agreement with your patients. Is
Correct.
that accurate?
Correct.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Did you want the issue of the ventilation addressed?
I don't, if there's nothing happening on site, then it's a moot point. There's no ventilation issue.
That's
I
fine.
think that was the health director, I think, thought there was potential for that, but what I'm understanding from the response from you is that there is no potential for that. Thank you.
Councilor Gould. Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Attorney Kelty. Jack, there's a little confusion. Can you tell us exactly what the hours of operation application will be, please? Because it doesn't line up to what Portland and...
We're requesting 10 to 7.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Saturday, no
10 to
Sunday.
7, Monday through Saturday, and not open on Sundays.
Correct.
And the understanding of all of your team is that if things change, they have to come back before us, as you know.
You would have to amend the hours of operation.
Okay,
That's
just to be clear. Okay, thank you. Tim, I'm sorry, Mr. President. Tim, do you have that? Okay, thank you.
Any other councilors? Councilor Melville.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Attorney Kelty, you've had an opportunity to review the host agreement, and you and your client and the petitioner have agreed to that host agreement that was approved by the council's municipal marijuana committee earlier. Also, you received a provisional certificate from the, or provision, it's getting late, approval essentially from the Department of Public Health. Is that correct? And with that, you have further steps to go before being issued a license to operate, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. From your original date and from the approval to now, have there been any changes in that original application? Is there any specific, place that would impact this particular site or its business practice?
That particular site, no, nor any other facility that my clients are running. There is a lawsuit that is a civil lawsuit that actually we are not a party to. We are not plaintiff. We are not defendant. But there is a mention of our company in that lawsuit, but we are not a party to that suit whatsoever. That's a civil action between some investors.
Through you, Mr. President, to Attorney Kelty, and the entity that you represent will comply to that host agreement to self-report any
Yes.
issues that should occur on the consultant, and to self-report any sort of any
consultation with Mr. Salvo and with our architects, we thought we could be up and running in about 6 months.
No further questions, thank you.
Councilor Gravel.
Yes, Mr. Kelty, how many facilities does your client operate in Massachusetts and then in other states, and where are they?
Jack, how many facilities do we?
Connection of Maine only has, Wellness Connection of Massachusetts only.
Wellness Connections, how many other states are you serving?
So all those companies are separate. They have the same team spirit and the same business spirit, but they're all unrelated.
So how many unrelated companies?
So Wellness Connection of Maine has 4 facilities in Maine out of the 8. Somebody mentioned that there was 5 dispensaries in Portland earlier. There's only 1. The others are black market facilities. There's only 1 in Portland. Wellness Connection of Maine has 8 official dispensaries in Maine and a growth site or manufacturing site.
In Rhode Island?
So Rhode Island is an affiliate. So it's Summit Compassion Center in Warwick. And they have a dispensary in Warwick and a production facility in Warwick.
And those other facilities, in, say, Maine and in Rhode Island, how long you've been?
Wellness Connection of Maine got its license 8 years, almost to the day, in July 2010. Started operation in the fall of 2011, and now has over 75 employees, and then Matthew McGeorge and I worked on the design of that facility too.
some significant experience.
And me, as an advisor, I have a facility that the two I mentioned. But we helped and advised other facility. The business model of Wellness Connection of Maine was the oldest one in New England, has always been to build a model that others could look up to. Compliance, community outreach, how we treat employees, how we treat patients. And so through that, the CEO of Wellness Connection of Maine, Patricia, has been a public speaker about how to open a dispensary in a community like this, and other members of the team have been part of that outreach to community to try to show a different view of what this new industry is, and that's new for everybody. So that's been our model, to try to create a strong, compliant, and community-oriented model.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other councilors? Councilor Sasala?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Heard the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Vote. Councilor Sasala?
Motion to approve the application from HR Development LLC, 30B Railroad Street, Revere, Mass. For a special permit seeking to operate a medical marijuana facility to be operated by Wellness Connection of Mass, Inc. at 0 Newbury Street. Assesses map 88, parcel 07, Peabody, Mass. Is filed in accordance with section 6.1, 6.1, 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance, with the only condition different from the application that the operating hours will be Monday through Saturday from 10 p.m. to 7, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., closed on Sundays. So move.
You heard the motion. On the motion, two people, Councilor Gravel first.
I think Councilman McGinn's going to say the same thing. There's some statutory language that you may want to add to your motion, so.
Councilman McGinn, you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Gravel and Mr. President. I was going to request that Councilor Sasslaw add a second condition that the medical marijuana dispensary operate pursuant to the terms and conditions, obligations, responsibilities, and disclosures under Section 6.3 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Peabody, and that those of the City of Peabody community host agreement provided to the applicant this day to execute the host agreement and to agree not to engage in any recreational or adult marijuana business uses.
With that, so moved. That's clear.
Councilor Melville, do you have something else? Thank you. On the motion, roll call.
Councilors O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn, Sasslaw,
Yes.
Mitsoulas,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Rosagno,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Motion carries 11-0.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. Thank you very much.
We'll be going to 4B, special permit. Will the clerk please read the notice?
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as a special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, June 28, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. in the Franco Wiggin Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application from Phytotherapy, Inc., 25 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. For a special permit seeking to operate a medical marijuana in accordance with sections 6.1, 6.13, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. Peabody City Council, Councilor Edward R. Charist, City Council President.
Would the petitioner please state your name and address and what you'd like to do?
My name is David Ankleys. I have a law practice located at 246 Andover Street, Peabody, Massachusetts, and I'm here tonight to represent Phytotherapy, Inc., a nonprofit corporation seeking a special permit to operate a registered medical marijuana dispensary at 25 Newbury Street, Route 1 North. Quite some time ago, my client filed a very complete and extremely comprehensive application for this permit. It is as extensive and informative as any application I've seen in my almost 50 years of practice with regard to zoning and permitting. I don't intend to repeat what you have already read and heard, but I would like to highlight the fact and refer you to Section 6.1 provided, and note explained in the application satisfies a local need. It's designed and it is not injurious to the established or future vicinity and the neighborhood. And it is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of our ordinance. Layout. If anyone has any questions in that regard, Chris will try to answer. Chris?
Thank you, Attorney Angeles. Members, my name is Chris Sparagis. I'm a registered professional engineer with offices in Middleton, Massachusetts at 189 North Main Street, Suite 101. The name of our company is Williams & Sparagis, LLC. We're civil engineers and land surveyors. As part of the special permit application, our responsibility was to prepare a site plan set, and we also prepared a development impact statement that described the various physical characteristics of the existing property and how these existing conditions are proposed to be changed as part of the proposed use. I'm going to be referring to the site plan just over here to my left. Our first sheet is an index plan, and you can see colored in the tan color, this is a large-scale view. Suntog Lake over to the west is highlighted in blue, and we're on the other side of Route 1 North, if you will. Our site is located at 25 Newbury Street, Assessor's Map 88, Lot 05. This particular property contains approximately 60,230 square feet of land, and it is located in the Regional Business District Zone. It is currently improved by 2 buildings, and I'll flip over to our site plan. Most folks are familiar with the existing buildings on the site. There is an existing convenience store, a 7-Eleven convenience store and gas station. The building footprint covers approximately 2,424 square feet and is located on the southern end of the site. And there are 4 gas pumps associated with the 7-Eleven out in front. That's the gray rectangular shape on our site plan. And then on the north side, we have a second building. It is an existing restaurant, the convenience store building. And the path of circulation for traffic goes access road, if you will. The width of the pavement varies anywhere from 40 to 50 feet, so it's quite wide. Provides a second means of ingress and egress from the subject property. In terms of the number of parking spaces that we have available to us on the property, of less requirements associated with the new use, starting with parking. We looked at the parking calculation that was most closely associated with the registered medical marijuana dispensary. in the zoning table and calculated our proposed condition parking as a clinic/medical building at 1 space per 250 square feet, which would require 20 spaces, and a convenience store/gas station, 1 space per 250, for a total of 10 spaces. That yields 30 required. And in the proposed condition, what we're proposing to reduce the number of available parking spaces slightly from 60 to 56, which would still yield an excess of 26 parking spaces. Part of our proposed improvements involve taking out some of the existing pavement to create a couple of additional landscape islands. We've got some extensive landscaping that we're adding into these areas, and we're also rebuilding the sidewalk and the handicapped access ramps that access the existing building at 25 Newbury Street. We also took a very basic look at the impacts associated with medical marijuana dispensary, the IT Land Use Code of Medical Clinic. That land use code yielded a total average trip ends on a weekday of only 157 trips. Based on this very simple analysis, we believe that the proposed change in use will result in a significant reduction in the total average trip ends for the subject property. If I can go into that in a little bit more detail, just so that you can see the definition in those trips. Moving on, I just wanted to touch upon utilities for the site. These are more site plan related, but I thought they were important to point out. Of course, we have city water available to us. This proposed use, it will use much less water than the existing restaurant use, which is a similar case for the proposed sewer use. Existing flow for the restaurant based on the number of seats is 5,250 gallons per day. The proposed flow that is expected from the RMD facility is only 375 gallons per day. There's no specific category in Title V that describes the flow from an RMD facility like this, so there will be some disruption, noise, pollution, if you will, during construction. And the construction involves the renovation of the inside of the building and the rebuilding of the sidewalks and reorienting and cutting of some pavement, and then repaving and repouring the sidewalks in front of the building. In terms of water pollution, there are no additions to the existing structure. There's no footprint changes. In fact, as I mentioned previously, we have a slight reduction in impervious surface, and this is an improvement over the existing condition. In terms of plants and wildlife, this particular property in this location in town is not located in a critical habitat for rare and endangered species, and we have provided a detailed landscaping plan of how we're proposing to increase the number of trees and shrubs on the site as compared to the existing condition. In terms of soils on site, none of our proposed activities will directly affect the soil quality or the characteristics of the soil on site. We also have our detailed on-site topographic survey and site visits and analysis of the aisle widths for the circulation patterns of the cars. There is more than sufficient parking and access to allow for safe turning movements for public safety vehicles, both in and out of the property. In terms of solid waste creation, there are 2 existing dumpsters. If the restaurant leaves the site, there is going to be quite a bit of a reduction in the generation of municipal solid waste, but the existing dumpsters will be more than adequate to support the proposed use. As far as impacts to the highway or roadways adjacent to the site, the redevelopment will use some limited heavy equipment associated with the demo of some small pavement areas and the sidewalk in front of the building as part of the reconstruction. There'll be some finished grading activity and then repaving with very little impact to that right-of-way next door and to Route 1. That's the end of my formal presentation, but I'm here to answer any questions through you regarding site information.
Is there any questions as of now? Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little confused, is the convenience store and gas station staying?
Yes,
You
that's
refer to
correct.
that as parking, so that parking that is currently there stays there for the convenience store and gas station?
That's correct. That building and use are going to remain unchanged. The only building use that's changing would be the Brothers Cucina.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Unfortunately, Captain Ken Gill, our Director of Security, lost his mother this week. She was waked today, and the funeral is in the morning. And our sympathies go out to rest assured that